I will see. Is it fine? Okay.
when it's a CEO's briefing, we come, we accompany the CEO raises us. It's the tradition, it's always been. Sometimes EXCO sits at the commission.
Exactly.
There's nothing
And to what?
Your time to speak to them. You don't have to rush to speak.
Yeah, if one would do that, I will not a minute.
Okay, just keep the mics up like that. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to the Results Operations Center, day 2 of special voting, and then final day of special voting. Beyond today, no special voting. Those that have voted were receiving quite a lot of thambis nationally. Welcome to this evening. We're going to look at how the 2 days have gone from Monday, yesterday, and today, but also looking forward to tomorrow. Welcome to all the members of the media, print, broadcast, digital. Everybody is here. So welcome, and I'm glad some of you have been doing some great coverage of special voting. Without much ado, I'm joined in this particular press briefing by the leadership of the Electoral Commission. I've got next to me the Chief Electoral Officer, the boss of elections, Ntate Saima Mabolo, and then next to him is Dr. Masuku. Next to Dr. Masuku is Chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Mr. Mosotho Miepia. Next to him is Vice Chairperson, Commissioner Love. Next to Commissioner Love is Judge Pillay. Next to Judge Pillay is Commissioner Mashinini. Full house, ne? The whole family is here. So that means that tomorrow morning, Siavoka, 29 May, here we come. CEO, get us ready. Thank you very much.
I complained about the teleprompt, but I must make do with what we have here before us. Greetings and good evening. The Electoral Commission extends its gratitude to South Africans who registered for and cast special votes at 22,626 voting stations over the past 2 days. At a point in the course of this afternoon, indications are that 937,000 voters had been processed. This figure is much higher than was the case in the previous elections and augurs well for an improved voter turnout tomorrow. Similarly, we are impressed with the diligence of the electoral staff who visited voters at homes and places of confinement in order to administer home visits. This category of voters would otherwise have been unable to record their political choices. Voters who, for whatever reason, were unable to cast a special vote may still vote at the station at which they are registered on election day tomorrow. The Commission thanks South Africans who have assisted and cooperated with electoral officials in the execution of their official duties. However, the Commission remains concerned with incidents of unlawful conduct directed at its operations or against electoral officials. Accordingly, we urge all South Africans, including political party members, supporters, and ordinary citizens to allow electoral officials to carry out their responsibilities without let or hindrance. The Commission thanks the law enforcement agencies for their support and the continued safeguarding of the electoral process, material involved, as well as the officials of the Commission. The lessons and experiences over the past 2 days of special votes are indeed valuable and will be used for further refinement to positively impact on voter experience tomorrow, the 29th of May. The Commission urges all the remaining 26 million eligible voters to go out and cast their ballots tomorrow. The network of 23,292 voting stations will open at 7 and close at 9 p.m. It is important to emphasize that eligible voters who will be at the voting station at 9 will be allowed to vote and not turned away. We reiterate that voters must vote where they are registered. The general rule in election is that a person votes at the voting station they are registered at. The only exception to the general rule is that a voter may vote outside of their registered voting station only after notifying the Commission of their intended absence from their home voting district. Notifications in this regard closed on May 17. Approximately 360,000 voters have been approved to cast ballots outside of their voting station. Now, this measure is not intended to be a gratuitous interference with the freedom of people to vote anywhere they wish. This is an important control measure which we need to safeguard the integrity of the process. I think we need to cast our minds back to 2019 when allegations of double voting abounded. Hence, Parliament intervened to say that a person must vote where they are registered, and the only exception being an instance where they notify the Commission of their intended absence. Now, the Commission also wishes to remind eligible voters of the following facts: that they need to bring along a valid South African identity document. That could be a green barcoded ID book, a smart card ID, as well as a temporary identification certificate. That each voter will be verified on the voter's roll and marked with indelible ink on the left thumb. Each voter will receive 3 ballots if they are voting in the province of registration. There'll be the national proportional representation ballot and the province to national ballot, as well as the provincial ballot. Voters are reminded to indicate their choices with 1 mark on each ballot. That each ballot will be validated with a stamp on the reverse. That all 3 ballots must be deposited into the ballot box at the voting station. It is prohibited for a voter to take a photograph of their marked ballot. This arrangement is necessary to protect the secrecy of the choice of voters and to avoid a situation where voters are coerced or unduly influenced into making particular political choices. We call on registered voters to check the correctness of their voting station, and there are a number of channels available for checking voters' registration status. Firstly, you could check by sending your ID number by SMS to 32810, by using the voting station finder on our public website, by making contact with our call center on 0800 11 8000, by using the IEC app, which is downloadable from Apple and Google stores. The Commission is also ready to administer elections at all correctional facilities throughout the country. Plans have been finalized with the Department of Correctional Services to ensure that eligible inmates can also exercise their right to vote. The South African Weather Service forecast a fairly good weather across the country. However, necessary steps have been taken to manage the potential negative effects of inclement weather on voting and counting processes. Furthermore, our partners, ESCOM, have given assurances that there are no plans for scheduled maintenance work or load shedding in the period leading up to tomorrow, as well as subsequent days for the collation of the election results. We urge people to report instances of power outages to ESCOM in the normal course to ensure effective response. For voters who may need identity documents, the Department of Home Affairs will operate its offices between 7 and 9 to facilitate the collection of IDs and the issuance of temporary identification certificates. A key aspect of our preparation included engaging with various stakeholders, which included political parties, independent candidates, the media, security and government structures at all levels. A number of state entities and municipalities are supporting the logistical effort that the Commission is engaged in. So when you say municipal trucks with election material, it's not an aberration, it is part of the logistical plan. The Commission welcomes and encourages vigilance by contestants and observers in the electoral process. However, such vigilance must be exercised within the confines of the law. Interference with the unfolding electoral program, logistical handling, or even intimidation of electoral staff cannot be justified as vigilance. We further welcome all interventions made by our law enforcement agencies. 2 arrests have been effected, and at least 2 cases are being investigated by the South African Police Service for interference with electoral material as well as electoral processes. It is now for all of us to work together to ensure that these elections are free, fair, safe, and that the outcome reflects the will of the South African electorate. The Commission applauds political parties and independent candidates for a relatively peaceful campaign. This is the spirit of tolerance and forbearance which we need to take into election day tomorrow. Our clarion call to all South Africans is, let's go out in huge numbers and vindicate our democratic right to vote. Thank you. Angishapele Matso.
CEO, no, definitely. We have clapped for the CEO on the eve of the 29th of May. Thank you very much, Ntate Mamabulo. I'm going to open the floor for questions. Introduce yourself and the media house you come from. We're going to have to do it by blocks. Block 1, block 2, block 3. I've got 2 hands this side. I've got IEC officials on the ground just to assist me that do not miss a hand. I'm going to start at this side, 1 and 2, and then we come from the front, and then that way, and then we end up that way. All right, thank you very much. Introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Sepwe Gane from the SABC. On the issue of transportation of ballots, at what period does that happen? And as it happened yesterday in the Eastern Cape, was security provided, and what happens to those spoiled ballots when we had an accident of that magnitude? Thank you.
Accident.
Mapel Buthelezi, please check my hand. I've got 2 this side. Thank you.
Hank Lowe from CakeNet, DSTV Channel 144. I've been covering some of the special votes today. At some of the voting stations, obviously media is allowed. We are accredited to shoot inside, but some presiding officers seem to be quite confused about what those regulations are. Can you just give us as media some clarification what we can say or what steps we can take should we feel it necessary to shoot inside some of the voting stations? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Kosnati Shazi from Power FM News. I just have one question and it relates to the indelible ink that's marked on your left thumb. So throughout the special votes, we've been visiting a number of voting stations, and party agents in particular have been complaining about the standard of the indelible ink. I myself voted yesterday under special votes, and the indelible ink on my left thumb has disappeared. So is the IEC not concerned about the standard of their indelible ink, and does this not open the door for potential allegations of vote rigging and all of these can of worms that can concern the IEC? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Josie. Good evening. It's Natasha Perry here from SABC News. In regards to special voting today, there's a family in Durban, the Hlophe family. It's an elderly couple, and they had applied and were approved for special votes. Yesterday, no IEC staff had actually come to help them. Today, as I was actually making my way to this briefing, they had called to say nobody actually came to help them with the special votes. So in regards to that, I don't know if you know about it, but what happens in that case, I know that Desai had said
Natasha,
that...
give us a bit of a volume so that we follow your story. Yeah.
Yes. So another question, I know you had a PLC meeting, IEC officials had a PLC meeting with political parties. A number of issues were raised within that PLC meeting. The issue of President Cyril Ramaphosa addressing the nation on Sunday. What was the conclusion of that meeting? Also, some political parties have raised the issue of police visibility, the lack of police visibility at some voting stations. Some aren't happy about that, with these concerns raised. And then, Mr. Mamabolo, you mentioned that 2 arrests have been effected and 2 cases are being investigated. Can you just please tell us in regards to, is it in regards to the breaking in of the warehouse, or is it in regards to one presiding officer where certain members of a political party actually went to his house to intimidate him? Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Khawalo Magolego from UFM. We've seen videos, particularly from KZN, of IEC officials presented and purported to be moving around with material on foot, long distances in areas that some political parties regard as dangerous. Are you aware of those circumstances? If it's true, whose responsibility it is? Is it mine as an official to make sure that I have transport to safely move the election material? And secondly, it's a follow-up to Natasha's question. On this issue of the speech on Sunday, exactly when does a person who's serving in an administration that is coming to an end, like this one, the 6th one, lose their authority to act? You have, for example, the Mthatha taxi violence there. Can the police minister, the outgoing police minister, can he go and address that situation? Wouldn't it be ideal if it was being done by career policemen in terms of, instead of politicians, because now it sends a certain message if a politician comes and affirms a state of readiness for elections, you know. Thank you so much.
All right, allow me to, I've got 5 questions. May I allow the IEC team to deal with the first 5, and then we'll take the second 5. CEO?
Or should I go there? The accident on the N2 relates to the transportation of material that belong to a political party and not material of the commission. Now, the incident such as we had in Umtata yesterday affirms the correctness of our approach to get bulk material delivered to voting station a few days before the election. Precisely because if we don't do that, you are at the vagaries of political machinations that may arise, such as we have seen in Umtata yesterday. So we've been criticized for taking the material too early to voting stations, but that's precisely a move to ensure that those who intend on protesting, closing on roads, don't affect our ability to start the voting process in time. Kate, ngaribe metsi ke tla o patala. Put that in the class. Sleeping is important. Because, now, with respect to shooting inside the voting station, report to the presiding officer who is in charge at the voting station. They would allow you for as long as the shots don't interfere with the secrecy of the voters. So in other words, avoid the ballot booth where a person is casting their vote. Now, the issue around the indelible ink, our own assessment of the issue is that it's holding well generally. There may be wrong usage of some of the pens, which results in not lasting, as is the case with you. But you've got to evaluate that control against other controls that are at play. For one, you can no longer vote anywhere. So you've got to look at the issue of indelible ink in the light of that fact, that you can't go and vote elsewhere unless you have applied for a Section 24A. And secondly, you've got to take account the use of the VMD, which carries an electronic copy of the entirety of the voter's roll. So those, the possibility for those allegations that we had in 2019 to say, I took jig and I cleaned my nail thumb and then I rushed to go to another station, they should not arise because you have to vote at the station where you are registered. That's why Parliament intervened to fortify that control in the election process. Now, the process of visiting homes has not concluded. There are teams still out in the field to ensure that all those who have applied for special votes are visited. Now, I don't have the precise details of the Hlophe family, but I can indicate that not all teams are back at base yet. The matter related to the state of, to the address to the public on Sunday, it's a matter that has now been escalated to the Electoral Court by the Democratic Alliance. The Commission has been cited in that matter, and the Commission is abiding the decision of the court. So let's leave the court to consider the matter and come hopefully to a judicious conclusion of the case. Police visibility. Look, the plan that the police placed before us were that on the days of special voting, they would have heightened patrols and not static deployment. Static deployment will happen as of tomorrow. So when one looks at visibility, you've got to look at it in the context of that plan, that police had to do heightened patrols as against static deployment. But from tomorrow morning, when you go to stations, police would have deployed. The cases, yes, there's a case in Elukwatini in Mpumalanga where persons who alleged to be members of a political party interfered with the box when it was taken to storage. 2 persons were arrested in that case, and a 3rd person is being sought because there were 3. So that relates, one of the cases relates to that. And then the other case relates to the accosting of a presiding officer at his house and taken to a police station related to material that was, or bulk material that was already delivered to a voting station. The transportation of the special voting teams, it's a combination of arrangements. Firstly, there were 31,000 teams of 2 people who were responsible for administering special votes at homes. So part of the arrangements were that the area managers, in some cases, the presiding officers would transport those teams. But of course, if the facility is just down the road, such as was the case in Primrose, Germiston yesterday, it's a walking distance. The 2 teams, members of the team could just leave and go to the voting station. When is the termination of the mandate of the executive? I don't think it's an electoral matter, and we don't want to encroach into areas that are not neatly within the purview of the Commission's mandate. So it's a matter that must be directed to the executive.
Thank you very much, CEO. I'm going to take the last 5 hands that I identified. Can we take from the second row going that way? Thank you very much. Let's proceed in that.
Good evening, Sihle Mlambo from IOL News. Can I just get clarification about the number of arrests? You speak about Mpumalanga and you speak about the presiding officer matter, which I believe was Chesterville in Durban. The statement here says 2 people arrested. Can you just clarify the actual number of people arrested? And just break it down place by place. Thank you.
Christian Duplessis from Netwerk 24. My question is, what are the challenges that the IEC experienced today, and do you think that what would you do to not experience the same challenges tomorrow? And then secondly, what do you expect for voter turnout tomorrow, especially among the youth? Thank you.
I'm Itumeleng from The Citizen. I would like to find out, Jabulani Khumalo got a day pass the other day. Now, would we be seeing a situation where he gets another day pass tomorrow? And then we can see two MK leaders in the same rock. And can the IEC explain the security, concern around this? Because can anyone get a day pass? What's actually happening with day passes? Thank you.
Are you good? Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Sifiso Mahlangu from Independent Media. My question is for Ms. Janet Love. If you look on the social media apps of the IEC, you realize the animosity the IEC seems to have with the South African public, and in particular Ms. Janet Love. So, Ms. Love, my question is to you. Have you considered stepping down, particularly after the accusations you faced in the DRC for manipulating an electoral register? Those, of course, were very serious allegations. Did you never consider that you'd save the IEC some face in a very highly contested election and perhaps have considered to resign? Thank you.
It's Heidi Jokos from ENCA. I'm not sure if I missed this, but yesterday you did mention that 107 voting stations were closed in Mthatha. Could you just give us an update on what's happened to those voting stations? Also, we've been on the ground today with a lot of IEC officials indicating that they cannot get to home visits on time, and there's just too many. Are you able to indicate if that's been a problem, not just only in Gauteng, but across the country? And what happens to home visits that were not attended to because there was just not enough time? Will IEC officials be going there tomorrow? Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Dan Moyane here from ENCA. Just last question from my side is one of the biggest risks that has been identified, or a threat to these highly contested elections, is misinformation and disinformation. And in a world of AI and deepfakes and all of that, it's been identified as a threat that can destroy an electoral democracy. We've seen how it's been used in other jurisdictions. You've partnered with the likes of Google, of TikTok, Meta, and Media Monitoring Africa ahead of these elections to make sure that misinformation and social media fake news and all of that is curbed to preserve the integrity of our elections. I just want to know, one, are you satisfied with the measures that you've put in place with these partners? Have you noticed, up to today, being the second day of special voting, any attempt at all to spread fake news about the elections so far? And if so, on which platforms, and what measures are you taking to protect us? Because tomorrow, you're going to have millions of South Africans descending on polling stations. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I've covered all the hands. Number 2. I'm supposed to be somewhere there at the back. Okay, I've got a batch, CEO, I've got a batch of the second 5 questions. I think let's deal with that batch, and then I'm going to close with the last round. Ne? CEO, let's take the second batch.
The people who arrested, it's in Mpumalanga, in both of them, Elukwatini and Rina, for having interfered with the material of the commission. Challenges that the IC is confronted with. I think one of the biggest challenge is taking aberrations and aggregating them for the whole. You take an incident in one locality and generalize it for the whole, losing perspective about the fact that an election involves a program of providing a service at 23,000 points. Now, when you deal with 23,000 points involving over 260,000 officials, human beings of different attitude, human beings of different training, human beings of different cultural backgrounds, something is bound to go wrong. Now, when that happens, you've got to take a step back and say, in relation to the whole, how material is that? But so the biggest challenge that the Commission confronts at the moment is aberration being taken to be true for the totality of the whole. That's one. And two, I think in this election, there's a clear orchestration to undermine the credibility of the outcome. The videos that you saw over the weekend are not an accident, but it's a clear, orchestrated endeavor to say this election could not have been free and fair, even before they happen. So, as a commission, we want to be resolute to protect the integrity of this election, because the South African people have invested in their democracy, and they have entrusted that responsibility on our shoulders. So we've got to act in a manner that does not let ball drop. Those really are the two strategic challenges confronting the IEC at the moment. Voter turnout. Voter turnout, we obviously would wish and are preparing for a huge turnout tomorrow. Now, a turnout of anything above what was achieved in 2019 will be satisfactory. But I'm sure if we hit the 70% mark, I'll be due a bonus. Okay, and then the issue of day passes, of course, the primary people that we want to accommodate are the contestants themselves, as well as yourselves, because you play an important role in creating a window for South Africans at home to see into the electoral process. So political contestants, the media, and then our stakeholders, many of them, such as Parliament, the Human Services Research Council, entities like those will be given priority. If there is additional capacity, then members of the public may come and they may get a day passes. So really that's the broad framework. The issue related to Commissioner Love, I think the occasion is not apposite to deal with it. The voting stations in Umtata, they all opened today, and they functioned well, and they were on course to conclude them, to conclude those home visits. Just to give you an indication, the allocation factor for the staff, it's a team of 2 people for every 20 home visits over 2 days. So we don't think that is necessarily onerous. Of course, we are alive to the fact that terrains are different. For instance, when you are in the Northern Cape, there are long distances to travel between residential settlements and so on. And beyond that, the framework also allowed for additional staff to be requested if such a need was identified. And indeed, in Port St. John's last night, there was a such request because, as you know, they were affected by the closure of the N2. So for them to be able to conclude the process today, they requested additional capacity. Yes, we do have a relationship with Google, TikTok, and so on. Are we satisfied? Yes, we are satisfied with the level of cooperation, where we believe takedowns of certain postings is justified. We've asked for that, and they came to the party where fake stamps were necessary. They have done so. But the rate and the intensity of the propagation of fake news is so big, it outpaces our reaction ability. So there's something that we're looking at in particular for tomorrow, so that we minimize this risk of the election eventually being undermined. The last issue really that one wishes to raise is if there's any misconduct on the part of any commissioner, the correct procedure is for the electoral court to be engaged to investigate that case of misconduct. And that is important because evidence has to be adduced in a proper judicial process and not ideas that people may have which may not be grounded in substance. So it's important that if there's a complaint, it must be placed before the electoral court for proper investigation and for a judicial determination to be made on the basis of evidence.
Now we take the third and last round of questions from the back. And my request is that if your matter has been dealt with, are we withdraw? Okay. Mara, why second line? I'm supposed to be there, it's CEO. I don't know why these 2 lines. Let me start from the back, because you'll be repeating yourselves. At the back, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's Tembi Lembete with the ACBC, but from the University of Pretoria. There were some videos on TikTok with people who had done special votes who were raising concerns about the 2 envelopes where there's one where you put your ballots, and then there's another one where you put that envelope in and it's got your name and your ID number. Could you please explain the process for how the special votes, how those ballots are going to be stored tonight, and then when the count is going to happen of those votes, and what happens with those envelopes that have people's names on them? Thank you.
We'll come back to the front. Let's just pick up the last hands at the
Thank
back.
you very much. My name is Figile Vilagazi. I am an independent analyst with SAPC. I'm also from the University of the Western Cape. My question is really section 24A. There's an element of it that has not been addressed about migration patterns that necessitate inevitability to be able to for instance, comply, with the provisions, particularly in relation to the date, where it says you needed to have notified IEC by the 17th of May. Given the precarious nature of employability in the country that necessitate migration almost on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, is it not possible for the IEC to lift that component just of the date, to say perhaps we revert to the previous status quo where we're saying voters who have migrated and were not able because of precarious reasons to inform the IEC by the 17th could be enabled to vote elsewhere they are. In that way, then, we mitigate circumstances of possible marginalization of that precarious voter. That's just my question.
Okay. We're going to take 3 hands from the hands in the front, the last one that side, and that will be my third and final block of questions. Thank you.
Turkmen Terzi from Turkish Minute. So, DA previously asked election observer from US and the ruling party opposite. And now I think you have 18 international observers and almost 180 local, domestic. So it means you are observing your own election. And maybe it is very difficult to rig election in South Africa, but in many countries, international observers are very critical and important. So what do you want to say about this issue? Thank you.
So my second question is just for more details on these 2 incidents that were described as electoral interference, these 2 issues. So can you just give more details about these incidents? The one in Mpumalanga, which is in eThekwini, and the other one where the IEC official was woken in the middle of the night. Can you just give more details? Who were the role players involved and exactly what happened? And will the IEC further indulge such behavior? Thank you.
Siyabonga Sithole from the Star newspaper. I'm interested to find out from IEC if it has done enough in terms of voter education. When I was growing up, I used to watch Khululeka. There used to be stage plays. There used to be all kinds of activities that were done to educate our voters. Has the IEC neglected that part of their responsibility? Because it seems that people are clueless on some of the things, especially that section that you quoted, I think it's 24A, where people are not allowed to vote outside of their jurisdiction and they have to apply before a certain time. It sparked a lot of conversations on social media. I think possibly that would be a part of voter education. Have you done enough on that score? Thanks.
Thank you very much. After you, I'm going to take the last hand with Butelezine.
Okay, it's just a follow-up on yesterday's question. But it was just on that voting station in Soweto where the alleged senior citizens were not able to vote. The station was left unattended. I know you asked for the details. The name of the voting station is the Ephraim Zulu Senior Citizen Center. So it seems that the same thing happened today. There were no IEC officials or presiding officers at that voting station. Can you just have clarity on that?
Okay, CEO will clarify that.
Yeah, we've reached the end.
Yeah, let me take the last question.
Last
here,
one.
and then that will be done. Proceed.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Puti Musumana from Inside Politics. I've got 2 questions. The first one, there's a voting station in Machabeng, the Free State Tabong Community Hall, where they literally ran out of envelopes. I want to know from the CEO how widespread is the issue and what will be the cause. The second one, and that was yesterday, the incident. The second one, the CEO made a big statement about, which some will argue is a political statement of an attempt, a deliberate attempt to discredit the Commission's work. I don't know, are there incidents that you can cite that shows that there are efforts to actually undermine the work of the Commission, just to justify so we don't misunderstand? Thank you.
And that's fine. Okay. Starting with the last question. Authorized vehicles of the Commission carrying important merchandise of the Commission are being followed into storage sites. People gain unlawful entry into the storage sites. That's one. Two, material of the Commission which has been delivered at the bulk material, that is, which has been delivered at the voting station, is being interfered with after gaining unlawful entry into that voting station. But not only that, taking that, videoing it, placing it in the public in the public domain. So that's what I'm talking about. I didn't quite get your question on Machabeng.
The station ran out of envelopes for special votes.
Okay, all right. It was not a generalized problem. It was instances where staff did not follow the system instructed allocations, because in terms of the logistics information system, it does give an indication as to how many envelopes must be delivered where relative to the number of special votes applications approved. The senior citizens, Natasha, that you're talking about, were in fact visited. There were about 54 or 52 of them, and the special votes were conducted. Voter education, has it been enough? It's been enough in the context of our budget, because we did everything within the total envelope available to us to get to South Africans to provide voter education. If you look at your TV channels, you'll see a very persistent advert about how to mark the 3 ballots, what each one of those ballots represents, and so on. That is important because you want people to have a visual impression of those ballot papers well before they get to a voting station. Same on radio, same on social media channels. Our own research tells us that people no longer consume education and news via It's Good, It's Nice. At a point they did, but they no longer do so. They now consume education and information in different forms, in particular on social media platforms, if you're targeting the young. Now, again, our own analysis of data at our disposal indicates that young people, once they are registered, they tend to participate in high proportions relative to the rest of the age demographics. We hope that that trend persists tomorrow. The two incidents, the first one is in Mpumalanga, Hendrina, where the representatives of a political party followed our presiding officer as he was taking the used ballot box back to the storage site yesterday. They interfered with the box. They handled the box. Now, no party should be allowed to handle the ballot box. Only officials of the commission may do so. Party agents, they are free to observe. They are free to raise objections if there's cause for that, but not to handle the electoral material. In that case, they did, hence they were arrested. Now, the other incident relates to a presiding officer indeed in Chesterfield where, again, followers of a political party went to the home of a presiding officer under the cover of darkness, woke him up and to say he must account for the bulk material already delivered at the voting station. The commission finds that a very egregious offense, a violation of the privacy of that presiding officer and actually undermining that presiding officer's human dignity. Now, the international observers, the commission has accredited international observers and they are in the country as we speak and observing the election. So it is not a correct characterization to say that we are observing our own elections. We have SADC, we have the AU, we have international IDEA, and throngs then of other continentally based observer groups. Now, we have repeatedly made the point that an executive arm of state of a country cannot observe an election of another jurisdiction, of another sovereign. What the principle is that multilateral organizations are the ones who promote observation missions and not sovereign to sovereign, but multilateral organizations, which is why international IDEA is here, which is why the African Union is here, and which is why SADC is here. So it's not correct to say we are observing our own election to the exclusion of international observers. It is not so. The two envelopes are used for the purpose of verifying special votes against the voter's roll at that voting station. So again, the use of the two envelopes, it's a control measure to ensure that unlawful special votes don't enter into the system at the voting station. However, it is important as well to note that the two envelopes are used to avoid, rather to protect the secrecy of the vote, because the outer envelope, after the verification process, is taken off and discarded. And the ballot paper still inside the inner envelope is then put into the ballot box, then in use at the voting station. So that's how we protect the secrecy of the vote on the one hand, but also ensuring that we can verify the lawfulness of those special votes. the striking a balance between migratory patterns and controls. I think the framework as currently obtained does that. Because it has an appreciation of the fact that people may have situations where special circumstances arise, and hence Section 24A was not totally repealed, but amended to ensure better control. I don't think at this late stage it is within bounds of possibility for the Commission to lift that requirement. There are people who have already had to travel to ensure that they are at their voting station of registration at great cost and so on. To do it at this late hour, I think it will just introduce confusion in the system and can in fact serve to undermine arrangements already made. Do you want to say something?
Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, let me bring this press briefing to an end. Tomorrow is another huge, big day. So we'll meet 7 o'clock at voting stations. Good night.